Good evening, Facebook. Hey, Ashley. Okay. So I am Phoenix Love of a Healer's Haven, where I help individuals as well as businesses and organizations to reveal, heal, and live on purpose. I am so excited about tonight's Sunday Soup. I have some special guests that are going to be joining me in a short while. Just waiting for more people to get on, and then we're going to get started. Meanwhile, hey Nina, thank you for joining. Hey, my uncle's on here. Hey Jamie. So, just waiting for everyone to join. Meanwhile, you can press the share button because this is sure to be an informative, enlightening, very, very important broadcast this evening. A lot of great information. And the title, as you see, is Demystifying Therapy. We know, especially in communities of color, there's a lot of stigma around therapy and mental health, and my wish and my plan and my goal tonight is to start to unravel that. Part of what we're going to be doing this evening is introducing you to different mental health professionals, licensed mental health professionals that look like you. And so I know that is usually one of the barriers to treatment. I've heard it over and over and over again throughout my course of being a clinician and doing this very important work of helping people that are suffering in silence. So, like I said, I'm excited, and we're going to get started in a few. I just want to get more people on. So take this time to share. I'm going to do some sharing myself while we wait for more people to get on. And then shortly I'll be bringing on our first clinician as soon as I get the notification. So just give me a few moments to share, and you do the same thing as you come on. Hi Lisa, how are you? Got a fellow social worker on here. Thank you for joining. Please share this broadcast as you come on. This is going to be very important information we're sharing this evening. Let me just turn down my volume so we don't have any feedback. So if you have groups, share it to your groups. Share it to your page. We want to get this information out. Try to turn this down. Hi, welcome. Just sharing out the broadcast, so please do the same. Hello, welcome. Please share this broadcast. And I'm just waiting for the notification to bring on our first clinician because I don't see it yet. Hey Kim, how are you? Just check something real quick. Okay, so Ashley, if you're okay with it, I might switch this around because I see you, but I don't see the other two clinicians. Because I just want to get started. We have people coming on and want to get this information out. Just, put in there, just let me know yes or no if you're okay with going first. Welcome, Nicole. Thank you for joining. Okay, great. Okay, so let's get started. So, like I said, this topic is all about demystifying therapy. I guess everyone should know by now, if you've been watching the news, we have had, there were two prominent celebrities, people that a lot of people looked up to, Anthony Bourdain and Kate Spade, who both committed suicide in the same week, which is, just crazy. And, you look at it and you say, wow, what is going on? But even besides the two of them, there was, I want to say maybe a couple of months ago, but I know it was this year, two young children. One was a teenager and one was, I believe, 10 years old, that also took their life in this area, in the New York area, if you're in this area. So this is something that obviously there is an issue because I spoke about, Kate Spade, who was all I knew about at the time when I did my live video. If you have not seen that video, please watch it. It's posted on my page. But then, it just had me thinking about this is something that is becoming an increasing problem, where we are seeing more and more and hearing more about people taking their life, people suffering from depression. But it's nothing new. It's just that there's more exposure to it now. So I thought it was important, one, to not just tonight do this particular broadcast, but just start doing a series of broadcasts and lives and webinars and whatever I can do as a clinician to be able to continue to spread awareness about mental illness, mental health disorders, stress, which is usually at the core of, most of the reasons why people are depressed or have a lot of anxiety, and sometimes, unfortunately, end up taking their life. So if nothing else, and this is something that was weighing on my heart just from hearing about these different suicide deaths, is that we need to, wake up and realize how serious this is. And I think it's something, and I'm not saying everyone takes it lightly, but I think especially when we talk about communities of color, it's been such a stigma, and we kind of diminish it and we put it to the side. Or if we even know someone that's suffering from depression or they have anxiety or they have some kind of emotional dysregulation, we tend to minimize it. So I really, really, really want to stress that please do not minimize, these symptoms or these conditions, whether you're experiencing it yourself or someone, even if it's a family member, if it's your children. Just, I can't impress enough to at least go check it out with a licensed mental health professional. So tonight, I wanted to bring on a few of my colleagues who are licensed mental health professionals, and there's different types. This is what I want to start to expose everyone to. There's different types. There's licensed mental health counselors, there's licensed professional counselors, there's psychologists, which I'm ready to bring on one. There's licensed clinical social workers like myself. And let me just say something about that. Social workers, because this is another thing, we need to educate ourselves. Social workers can work in many different facets, many different settings, many different parts of, or different specialties. So social workers are not just the people that are in foster care and coming and knocking on your door or taking people's children. That has always historically been the thought process behind what a social worker does. That's not just what a social worker does. And most of the time, to be truthful and honest, the people that are working in the foster care system and that are coming door to door and, have to do the assessments at the home. They're not social workers a lot of times. They are, case managers, or they have different titles. So it is nothing against that. We all work in this field to be able to make improvements and to help people. However, that is not what a social worker does. My field, what I do, because I just want to really, really drive home this point, is that licensed clinical social, hence the word clinical, we are therapists. So let me just help you understand a little bit more. I went to school. I went to Fordham University, which is one of the top universities, private universities for social work, among other things, law and other fields. And I got my master's in social work. And then I had to take an examination. And that made me an LMSW. And that examination was extremely difficult. It's just like with nurses and RNs, they have to go and pass the board. We have to do the same thing. But then 3 more years of experience working in the field, making sure that I had a licensed clinical social worker or a psychiatrist or a psychologist had to sign off on me for me to go ahead and take the next exam, which was the LCSW. So I had to take 2 examinations in order to become a licensed clinical social worker and have the tenure of 3 years of experience on top of the first license. So I'm just giving you an idea of, it's not just when you go to therapy, you're sitting there, you're just talking with someone, they're just going to counsel you. Yes, that's a piece of it, but we study, we have evidence-based practices, meaning that they're funded research-based interventions that we use to work with clients based on the symptoms and the behavior and their history and their genetics, and it's a whole comprehensive examination that we have to do. And then from that, we come up with what's called a treatment plan, a comprehensive treatment plan. And usually we are working with other licensed mental health professionals in a team situation and consulting with each other to be able to provide the right and the appropriate interventions and solutions for that particular client. So there's a whole science to this whole thing. So I just wanted to, share a little bit about an LCSW, which is what I am, a licensed clinical social worker. Now, I'm going to bring on one of my colleagues. Let me just give you a little bit of history about him. This is Dr. Ashley Fowler. Let me just go to, because I have to switch the order around a little bit. So Dr. Ashley Folks is a licensed clinical psychologist. Dr. Ashley C. Folks is a licensed clinical psychologist. I apologize for the name mix-up. His passion for LGBTQ and sensitivity is palpable and has resulted in him becoming a highly sought-after speaker and consultant. Dr. Folks has worked in the field of diversity and inclusion for the past 10 years and has been called upon to provide training and consultation to organizations both large and small. So I'm going to let Dr. Folks get on here and give you a little bit more information exactly what a psychologist does, and to tell you a little bit more about his specialty. And without further ado, give me a minute. Let me bring him on. Thank you for joining, everyone. Let me just see who's jumped on while Ashley is coming on. Yes. And okay, I'm going to bring you on right after Ashley. Thank you. Erica, thank you for joining. Natisha, thank you for joining. Just want to make sure I didn't miss anybody. Okay, wait a minute. Okay, I see you. I'm trying to bring on Ashley first because we had already started the order. Let me see. If I can't get him on, then I'll bring you on. Hey, Linda. Okay, everyone's here. Thank you. Let me see if I can get Ashley on. It says it's adding. I hope everyone is having a wonderful evening so far. Okay, so hold on. Let me bring you on in. Oh. Yeah, I see that, Ash. Let me see if I can bring Ann on and then we'll work on. It's saying it's, somebody said it's frozen. No. Hello.
Hi there, how are
I'm
you?
great. How are you? Let me just see.
I am well.
Yeah, I can see you and I can hear you fine, but I'm looking on my other device and it looks like it's frozen. The screen is frozen. Can anybody tell me, can you see both myself and Ann? And is it frozen? Because I do see on my other device, it does look like it's frozen. This thing is temperamental. And it wasn't letting Ashley on. Okay, Nina says she can see both of us. And I'm assuming,
Okay.
okay, good. I'm not sure why it's showing up frozen on my thing, so I'm just going to close it out. And all right, let's get right to it. So I had started reading Ashley's bio. I don't have one for you, so I'm just
Uh-huh.
let you do what you do. And Ann Dillard is a licensed marriage and family therapist, correct? LMFT.
That's right.
And I know that Ann has a powerful, wonderful show called Teen Talk that she does right here on Facebook, correct? And
Yes, that's correct.
she's doing amazing work with families, with teens. So I am going to just turn it over to Ann and let her tell you a little bit about who she is, what she does, her population, and it's all yours, Ann.
Awesome.
Well,
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Phoenix. It's so great to be here with you tonight. Hi, everybody. My name is Ann Dillard. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I'm licensed in Georgia as well as in Minnesota. And my primary focus is working with teens. And so, when you work with teens, definitely have to work with families as well.
yeah.
I do have a talk show on Facebook Live on Monday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's called Teen Talk Live, and we work towards transforming the lives and minds of teens and those who love them. So I bring in people from all different genres that have something to contribute to the lives of teens and their parents. And we just launched our book. Congratulations to you too, Phoenix,
Thank you.
on your book launch.
Thank you.
We just launched our book, Unchain My Legacy, which will be featured on Amazon on later on this month. So stay tuned for the order link and the date for that.
Yes, and I will share that out. So don't worry, everyone. I will share her information and the information about Unchain My Legacy because already I know because I had a chance to meet and know some of the authors, and it's just amazing. So
It really is.
yes, yes. So and tell the audience a little bit about what an LMFT, a licensed marriage family therapist, does, and sort of your training, just so they can get an understanding. Because I want them to be able to distinguish, who's the right therapist for me if they're looking or they want to refer someone. What's the right, who
Right,
should I go to with the credentials? Just give them a little bit of information about.
right. Okay. Now, a licensed marriage and family therapist. So sometimes when people hear that terminology, they think about just a marriage therapist.
Mm-hmm.
But we cover the whole spectrum. We do individuals, we do groups, we are able to do couples, and usually what people do is they specialize in a certain population.
Mm-hmm.
Um, The way the license, what distinguished the licensed marriage and family therapist from some of the other disciplines is that we take a systemic approach to treatment. So meaning that we come in and we look at um, what other agencies are involved with, for example, with me when I'm working with my youth. I want to know, do they have basketball? Do they have a coach? I want to talk to the coach for collateral evidence, information.
Yeah.
Are they in the court system? Do they have a caseworker? Do they have an occupational therapist? I want to look at the presenting problem that they bring from a whole person, a systemic approach, meaning that it's not just, I believe really that whatever the problem is, your environment, your system is a contributing factor to whatever problems we're seeing.
Exactly. Okay, wonderful,
Yeah,
wonderful. So one of the things, and you already talked about the book. You already talked about Unchained by Legacy. Tell just a little bit about your piece or your story there, just so that people understand that a lot of us that are therapists, we have had our own journey. This is what called us, or the work
absolutely.
called us to it, right? This occupation
That's
called us,
right.
but just because of our own journey, our own history, maybe things in childhood, and how we were able to heal and overcome, most of the time using therapy, using other therapeutic interventions. In my case, I'm sure with yours, prayer and meditation, all these things
Yes,
to help us to be able to help other people, right? So tell
all of that.
about that, about your child.
So, yeah, my chapter of the book is I wish I knew this at 13. And 13 is a critical age in the development of a child, and especially in a girl. And so, my chapter, I talk about my relationship with my daughter, who's my oldest child. And I talk about how I saw some of my same issues being manifested in her and feeling helpless and not knowing what to do to help her make that U-turn, or even if I should.
Mm-hmm.
And so, not it, so then I did nothing in a lot of cases. And while I was a good mother, there were some huge mistakes that I made, and I passed on some of my stuff, like how to resolve conflict, what to do with your emotions. So I'm an emotional eater, and consequently passing that on
A lot of us women.
to my daughter,
Yeah.
right? And so I talked about that in the book, and I talk about how I had to resolve that with her and work through some steps to get into right relationship. So in my chapter, I gave 10 key awarenesses that I had, and one of which is to say that you can get swallowed up by the guilt and the shame of what you didn't do or what you did do, but it's important to remember, when you're hearing the story or you're listening to the other person's story, it's important to hear them from where you were, but understand them from where you are now.
That's powerful. Yes.
You know,
I love that.
I'm like, yeah, so I'm hearing her from the 20-year-old mom that I was, and in her experiences and being with her in that experience, but understanding her from where I am now as an almost 50-year-old person, that I'm not that same person, but I still have to hear her and be accountable for the things that I caused
Mm,
when I was that person.
wow. That is so
Yeah.
That is so profound. And the work that you do, the work that we do as therapists in general, but I love what you said, Anne, because we are a reflection of each other, all of us. right? And it's
Right.
seeing our children a lot of times, and I know you've experienced it. I know I've experienced this as a therapist. The work I've done with families is that they'll kind of bring the kid to you and be like, fix them. And,
Fix them.
well,
Yes.
but what is
Yes.
encompass? Encompasses, working on you, the parent, as well, because they are just a
Right.
you, and that's something sometimes parents don't want to hear, right?
Exactly.
And this,
Exactly.
I know we say, we've learned, and you just shared that with your journey, that we have to do our own work first. We can't have the
Absolutely.
for our children to be perfect and have, doing everything right. And then we know that we didn't do everything right, and they're
Exactly.
right. And if we're not,
Right.
if we are still dealing with our wounds, then how are we being the example to them that they need? And sometimes
Right.
very hard pill to swallow.
It really is because it's a work in progress and you have to look at yourself. But not the important part in looking at yourself is not getting bogged down in the guilt and shame.
Mm, yeah.
Yes, I did fail at some things, but I'm not a failure. How do you walk through that?
Right, right, right. And I always
Yeah.
tell people when I work with families, in fact, I'm a little rough. I'm gonna be honest as a therapist. When I say I'm rough, is that because again, my whole thing is reveal, heal, live on purpose. You have to challenge whatever those issues are. We have to challenge. We have to bring it up to the surface. And sometimes it's very ugly, and we don't want to deal with that sometimes, especially as parents, or even just dealing with our own stuff. But I always
It's ugly.
parents, and I'm sure you do this too. Listen, this is not a sprint. This is a marathon. This is work in progress, right?
Exactly.
Constant work. And the other thing is, when I'm working with your child, that means I'm working with you. I'm working with the family.
Exactly.
So
That's right.
we gonna get into your
That's
stuff,
right.
right? And sometimes we're
Yes.
comfortable with that.
And that might means you have to go to therapy to
There
take care of some of your stuff,
you go. I love
right?
yes.
Uh, I love the work that I do. I'm working on a workbook to go with my chapter, and I'm developing mother-daughter healing circles.
Oh,
So, so I'm going to be traveling, doing workshops to bring about, healing in mother-daughter relationships because that's such a critical relationship. And a lot of our relationships in life are based on our ability to attach with our mothers.
excellent. And what did you say? You talked about, and I think I saw Renetta join. Welcome. I think I saw a couple of our colleagues join. Natalie. Hey, Natalie.
Yes.
So I know that Renetta's chapter is all about, what's eating you. And you talked about emotional eating. I have, and I know many, many women that's an issue, but a lot of our eating comes from, especially if we eat a lot of dairy and cheese, is related to a mother, daughter type of relationship issue or a breach there. You know,
Yes.
this is something that I've learned in my holistic health practice learning journey from Queen of Food. I've learned from her. She breaks down every single food, why we eat that food, why are we putting these things in our mouths that are usually
Wow.
not, that are damaging our bodies, and that also is impacting our emotions adversely. So we're
Right.
actuating the problem with what we're putting in our mouths. Isn't that
Right. That's something. And I gotta notice that my device might be turning off because it's too hot. So,
so? We're actually, I don't want to let you go because I know you you have so much wealth information, but we might have to have you come back, Ann, and just do something with you because I just love the work that you're doing. And just tell
yeah.
before you go real quick the name of the book and where they can get it, just so they can learn more
Okay.
about your story and what the whole anthology and all the fantastic women that have contributed to it.
Right. It's a book with 12 amazing women who participated in this anthology, and it's called Unchain My Legacy.
Beautiful.
And on June 27th, we're going to be having a special on Amazon So look out for that. And if you drop your name in the comment section, we'll make sure that you get a link. Just hashtag Unchain My Legacy in the comments. We'll make sure you get a special order link so you can be included on this Amazon special that's coming at the end of the month. And my website is www.annedillard.com.
And please put that in the comments. Put how they could contact you, because we might have some people that will actually reach out to you for services.
Absolutely. Keep up the good work, Phoenix.
Oh, of course. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for joining.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.
Okay. So now we're going to attempt to bring on our next therapist. Let me just make sure I'm saying hello to everybody that joined in. Lynn, I see you. Welcome. Thank you for joining. Natalie, Renetta. I just want to make sure I didn't miss anybody. Okay, let's see. I think I saw Sabra as well. Okay, I don't see how to bring on Linda. Bring on Ashley. Hopefully we can get him on. And please share this out. If you haven't, oh, there you are.
Hey, how you doing?
It kept saying, you declined. I said, wait a minute. Don't you want to talk to people? Oh, Ashley, thank you so much for taking time out to do this. And I should say this, and I apologize for botching up. I don't know whose name I was saying. Dr. Folks, am I saying it correct?
Correct? You got it right.
Okay. All right. So we have Dr. Ashley Folks, and I did already read a little bit of your bio just for the essence of time. Dr. Ashley, just please, go on and tell folks about who you are, what you do, and let them know what, again, I'm trying to help everyone distinguish the different types of therapists that are out there. You're a licensed clinical psychologist. So talk to the people about who you are, your population you serve, and just what a psychologist does.
Absolutely. So I'm a psychologist. In order to be a psychologist, you have to have your doctorate. Some people have their doctorate in psychology. Some have their doctorate in philosophy. I have my PhD, so I have a doctorate of philosophy. And there's lots and lots of different types of psychologists. You've got school psychologists, counseling psychologists, health psychologists, industrial and organizational psychologists, clinical psychologists, and I'm a clinical psychologist. And so one of the things I think that separates psychologists from a lot of the other groups, kind of like you were saying earlier, yes, we are therapists. So at the baseline, we are therapists. But one of the things that's different about a psychologist is that we tend to specialize in both research and assessment.
Yes.
And so we have, oftentimes you'll see us either in different programs where we're studying the effects of something, or the effects of the presence of something or the absence of something. And then oftentimes you see us in assessments. And so you see us a lot of times in the court system. We might come in and do evaluations, forensic evaluations, not guilty by reason of insanity, or custody evaluations. We do a lot of assessments and a lot of research. As a clinical psychologist, what makes us a little bit different is we focus on psychopathology. And so we're focused a lot on a mental illness. And so you'll oftentimes see us in forensic settings, working with the severely mentally ill, figuring out different, behavioral intervention plans for them, determining whether someone is guilty or not guilty by reason of insanity, determining whether someone is safe to be released to the community. We have a tendency to be focused in on psychopathology and those with severe mental illness. And so that's kind of what separates clinical psychologists from our counterparts. I personally, at this stage in my journey, I'm actually a hospital administrator. I did spend a lot of years doing the direct clinical work. I worked in freestanding psychiatric hospitals and state hospitals, and in the prison system, all those places that I just mentioned where you normally see clinical psychologists. But now actually I am a hospital administrator. I'm actually the chief operating officer of a psychiatric hospital. So I'm still in my element. because I'm just really, really passionate about mental illness and severe mental illness and creating change and creating a safe space for those that are highly vulnerable. I'm just doing it from more of an administrative lens at this point. So, yeah.
Wonderful one. I didn't realize we had so much in common.
Really?
Because actually, yeah, actually, before I decided to make the transition into my own practice, which is Healers Haven, I was actually an administrator for a psychiatric hospital in New
Okay,
York.
okay. Yes, yes.
So, yeah,
Awesome.
so I was and working with the forensic population. I was
Yes,
a director of treatment for adjudicated females in a juvenile justice facility. So
absolutely.
I'm
See, I
sitting
get
here
it.
like, oh, look at that.
How
And
about that?
I'm saying that, right. I'm saying that also just to show, people that, again, we are everywhere and we
Yes,
wear many titles. And, and like I was saying before, most of the time in most situations or settings, even especially our settings that we just spoke about, is that it's multidisciplinary. So you
yes,
may have a clinical social worker, you may definitely have a clinical psychologist,
absolutely.
health therapy aides. I did a lot of work with nurses, are an
Yes,
integral part,
yes,
psychiatric
absolutely.
nurses, right?
You hit
So
the nail on the head. That treatment team, each discipline is represented and each discipline is so necessary because we have, a different lens. And I'm also a certified sex offender treatment provider. So I provide sex offender treatment. And right now, like I said, I'm focusing more on hospital administration, but I did that for lots and lots of years. And that was really an eye-opening experience for me and in my journey. So that's just
that's
kind of me. I'm
tough
sorry.
pop. I
It
said
is.
that's a tough population.
It is,
Yeah.
it is, it is. And it's interesting because I had the opportunity, the great opportunity to work with some individuals that were just really, really deviant and, that really challenged me at my core. It challenged me. And I think, I attribute a lot of my growth clinically from having worked with sex offenders. And not just my growth clinically, but my growth just as a person, just as a human, being able to see the humanity in everyone, being able to see the light in everyone, and that, being able to look at someone and not view them as a bad person, even if they've done terrible things. And I
Right.
attribute a lot of that to having worked with that population. Because, I'll tell you what I say to people all the time. I do a lot of LGBTQ sensitivity. And one of the things that I tell people is that when something is this far distant thing, when it's an other, it's really easy to hate, to fear, to
Mm-hmm.
vilify. But when you get into close proximity with someone, it is
Yes.
hard. I mean, in Phoenix, I'm serious about this thing. It is hard to hate up close. It's
Yes.
hard. It is hard to hate up close. When we look at racism, when we look at sexism, when we look at ageism, when we look at all the isms and all the obias, right? When we look at homophobia, transphobia, all of that, it's hard to hate up close. And when you actually have a chance to engage with someone one on one and see their humanity and see
Yes.
how similar we actually are and how connected we actually are, it's really a life altering thing. It truly is. And so I worked with some of the highest risk sex offenders in Virginia. As a matter of fact, I worked with female sexually violent predators for several years. And it
Mm.
challenged me to my core because it challenged everything that I thought about just, the maternal instinct and what it meant to be a mother, what it meant to be a nurturer, what it meant to, protect and care for that which you birth forth. I mean, it challenged everything that I felt I knew at the core of me. But it's hard to hate up close, Phoenix. And I got to tell you, at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, I just saw women that were hurting, and and
Mm.
uh, and it changed my life. It
You
really
saw,
did.
you saw their humanity, which
Yes,
is the blessing. Is tough work that we do, is tough work, especially the role that you have in the populations you work with, that some people don't even want to touch.
yes,
They don't
yes.
want to go anywhere near it because it is so challenging. It's just like a lot of times with therapists, we say, oh, we don't want to work with people that have borderline personality disorder.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
these are people. They have a condition. They need help just like everybody else.
Yes,
So like you said, you have to kind of remove all of the biases, the isms, and all of those different things. And if you can't, then you have to refer to somebody else
Exactly.
that can do.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
have to meet them where they are. We have to go in there with a blank slate. No matter what the rap sheet says, no matter what the history says,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. You're right.
But we still got to meet them where they are. That's
Well,
powerful. You can't hate up close. I
it's
love that.
yes, it is. It's so hard, and working in the prison system, I experienced that a lot. I mean, some of the most, some of the kindest, most generous, most thoughtful inmates were murderers. Like, and you would be like, gosh, you killed someone. But it's hard to hate up close. It's hard to hate up close, and you get to see people's humanity. And I'm just a firm believer in, and people ask me a lot about the populations that I work with and how I can work with them. I'm a firm believer in redemption. Um, I believe, and I couldn't do this work if I didn't. I believe
Right.
that people can change. I believe that people can be made whole, that they can be made anew. And if I didn't believe that, I couldn't do this work. But I've seen it with my own eyes enough times that no one can convince me otherwise, that it really doesn't matter what you've done, what you've experienced, that as long as you've got breath in your lungs, it's not too late to make a change. And it's not too late to turn things around. And I just really believe that.
Woo, you are dropping some bombs here, Dr. Ashley. So, two things before, well, actually, three things. You brought up one of the clear distinctions from other types of therapists, and a psychologist is the assessments,
Yes.
the evaluation that you do, and you're called on, to go to court and, these assessments, especially with the forensic. Can you talk a little bit about how critical and vital and important assessments are, and just give an example of a type of assessment you
Sure.
do, with the
Sure.
population?
So assessments are, I think you hit the nail on the head. They're critical. And I'll give an example of, diagnostic clarification, for example. So one of the things that I think we all have in common is we've learned how to treat individuals once we know what's wrong with them. But sometimes it's really, really difficult to determine what exactly it is that we're looking at. And what separates a psychologist from some of the other disciplines is that we've been trained in how to go about doing a comprehensive evaluation and to do a clear assessment so that we can distill all the information down into what's most important and come up with a concrete diagnosis. And once we have that diagnosis in place, then we're able to pass that information along. At that point, most of us, we know how to treat once we know what's wrong. We just need to know what's wrong. And so it's really, really important. And oftentimes we'll get called upon for diagnostic clarification. Or, like I said, in the forensic setting, oftentimes we're called upon to assess to determine whether or not someone should be considered, whether it's for parole or for probation, whether or not someone should be held responsible for their actions, in terms of competency, not guilty by reason of insanity, or whether or not they are able or competent to stand trial for their actions. And so those are some of the types of assessments that we do that really allow for the other disciplines to be able to take it from there and run with it. And so we're just one piece of the puzzle, but I think it's an important piece.
To the
It's
puzzle.
a valuable piece.
Yes.
Yeah.
And, I do want to just share my own experience as far as working with psychologists, clinical psychologists, when I was running the Office of Discharge Planning for the New York State's Office of Mental Health. And we were in, my department was partially responsible of reintegrating these very high risk,
Yes.
most
Yes.
had said were murderers, high assault, substance abuse users, and sex offenders. We have a large sex offender population. And when we say, just for those who may not know, when we say sex offenders, we're talking about those that are they have to be listed on the registry, the actual
Right.
sex offender. So that means they committed a crime,
Yes.
a sexual deviant related crime, and they have to be listed legally on the sex offender registry. So with saying that, many times we had to call in, or the actual agencies that were going to provide housing for this population, for a particular client, they wanted to get clearance. They wanted to see,
Yes.
well, what is the level of risk
Right.
before particular person come to live in our
Yes.
apartment or housing site. And so we would call on a clinical psychologist to do an actual risk assessment,
Risk assessment.
whether risk assessment or sex offender risk assessment.
Yep.
And the other one was fire safety.
Mm.
So we had a lot of arsonists
Yes.
and those who had some kind of history of setting fires. So that was another one, a fire. So this is,
Absolutely.
again, I'm just letting people know,
Yes.
again, how valuable your services are, and that, like you said, that's just one piece of it.
Just
But
one of the
like you
one
said,
piece of the puzzle, and that's why the multidisciplinary team is so important, and one thing I would encourage people to do, if you do go out and you do seek services, and you find someone that you feel comfortable working with, you want to make sure that you're asking whoever you're working with, do they have a team of people that they consult if they need to consult? Because if you're seeing someone who is out there floating on their own without anyone to consult, then you're in a pretty dangerous situation. And any good clinician, has people that they know they can call upon if the need arises. And so that's one of those things that you want to ask. Hey, if we come across something while we're processing that maybe you've never, come across before, do you have someone that you can reach out to? And I think that that's really important. And if they can't say yes to that, then run. Run and find someone else.
yes. So and the beautiful thing about my tenure of working, in the field for many years is that, even in my private practice, I have many friends that are psychiatrists.
Yes.
I have many friends that
Yes.
are psychologists. I have many friends that are RNs. So
Absolutely.
I know I can pull on and pull in, on those resources just by picking up the phone.
Yes.
So you're absolutely right, especially those that say they're in private practice. Make sure that they have those connections. I've already referred, for psychiatric evaluations and to see a psychiatrist. You have to have that team support.
Absolutely.
So thank you for that up. So Dr. Ashley, the last thing that we're going to talk about, of course, is Dr. Ashley is one of my co-authors in the wonderful Black Therapist Rock. I totally impress upon anyone to get this book, especially if you want to learn more about therapy in our communities, what we do, who we are, and our journey. Because, I mentioned it earlier when we had Ann on, we all have had our own journey of healing, overcoming, and what has, again, attracted us to the work that we do. This very, very important work.
Yeah.
So just talk a little bit about your chapter.
Man, you got me smiling ear to ear, man. Like, I really, and this chapter means so much to me. I really, I shared some things that I hadn't really shared before, and I really wrote from a pretty vulnerable space. So one of the things that I mentioned is that I do a lot of LGBTQ sensitivity trainings, and I actually am a part of the LGBTQ community. I'm actually transgender. I'm trans male. So for those of you that are observant, you probably noticed that Phoenix used male pronouns when referencing me, because my preferred pronouns are he, him, and his. I'm actually transgender. And in my chapter, I talk about what it was like to grow up in a highly religious household. I grew up, both of my parents are pastors, and I grew up in church. Like, I was one of those kids who was in church like 8 days a week. Okay. And I talk about what that struggle was like for me, struggling with my sexual orientation, struggling with, who I was as a person, and how it flew in the face of everything that I've been taught, and how I struggled with having, I had such a beautiful relationship with God, but at the same time, I was being told all the time that the things that I felt and that who I was perverse. And so I talk about that struggle and what that was like for me. And another thing that I talk about is, being a certified sex offender treatment provider, and actually being someone who has an extensive history of sexual abuse and how that impacted my work. One of the things that you mentioned earlier, Phoenix, was that, most of us, we have our own stuff. We do. And I think that's what draws a lot of us to this work, is we have our own stuff. And for me, I've met a lot of people that are survivors of abuse, and it almost is like the pendulum tends to swing one way or the other, that most of the people that I know end up either being like, I hate them all, die, 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 or they're like, what are we going to do to try to fix this problem? And I've met some people, not very many, but I've met some people that are disengaged, but that normally doesn't last very long. They normally end up popping up at some point and picking which way they're going to go. And so for me, I just happen to be, not that it's better, it's not that it's better at all, but I just happen to be on the side of, what are we going to do? How are we going to fix this problem? Like, how do we keep this from happening to someone else? Like the things that happened to me, how do I, what role can I play in preventing this from happening to someone else? And so I ended up becoming, a certified sex offender treatment provider. And amazingly, I ended up being really, really good at it. And I think that it's because of my experience, not in spite of or despite, but because of my experience. I think my lens was just very, very different. And so I personally believe in, compassionate accountability, which is the approach that I've always used in treatment, which is, I think that everyone's deserving of compassion. That doesn't mean that we don't hold you accountable, but it means that everyone's deserving of compassion. And so like using that approach to treatment and being able to then at that point work with anyone, no matter what you've done, and saying, okay, well then how do we fix this though? How do we make it better? How do we make sure that this never happens again? Or in the case of sex offender treatment, how do we make sure that there's no more victims? Right? And that's what it all comes down to. And so like my chapter talks about what that journey was like for me, what it was like to work with sex offenders, even though I had myself experienced a significant amount of sexual abuse. And then what it was like for me to grow up in a really religious household, being a sexual minority. In the end, when it's all said and done, I look at where I am now, and I'm floored by where I am and the opportunities that have been afforded to me. And in the chapter, I just really kind of talk about what that journey was like. And really, it's the start. It's just the start. Like I did this chapter, and I realized that I've got a lot more to share, and so I'm sure I'll be writing more in the future. This is just the beginning for me, I hope so.
Woo, so powerful. Listen, everyone, you have to pre-order this book. I will definitely drop the information in the comments, but just to hear Dr. Ashley's amazing story. But there's so many amazing stories in this book. There's 17 of us, 16? I keep saying different. Yeah. I think it's 16.
I think it's like 16.
And we all, like you said, we have taken this path because we have experienced our own hurt, pain, shame, attenuation, challenges, and we were able to overcome. Like you say, you look back and you say, wow, look how far I've come. Is this really, kind of pinch yourself? This is me.
Yes.
Right? But I think is so beautiful and so amazing that you were able to take what you went through, the severity of it, and now you're actually working with a population that were represents the perpetrator.
Yes.
Powerful. And that says a lot about forgiveness. That says a lot about compassion, humanity, all of the things, that we all should be and all should represent, all should have, instead of judgment and hate and, I'm better than you, or you shouldn't do this, and all of these different things, like you said, the isms and the biases. We have to get past that because we are losing because of those biases and hate and isms, and I just love the work you're doing with the LGBTQ community, because we need that. We need that so much, and we need for these young people especially to be heard, because so many being told, like you said, that this is wrong and these kids are taking their lives because of it.
Yes, it's so true. And that's actually one of the things that I talk about, in the book, that I consider myself fortunate to be alive, because there's so many people that have lost their life just because other people hate them for existing and being the way that they are. And then there's so many people that have taken their life. And one of the things that I talk about in the chapter is, if I were to be completely transparent with you, there were times that I didn't want to be here anymore. That I just couldn't reconcile myself with, a God that would, punish me for something that I couldn't change. Like, and that I begged and I pleaded and I fasted and I prayed and I cried and I had it cast out of me and all of those things, and I just could not make it stop. And that a God that I truly believed was able to do anything, would punish me for that. That would refuse to deliver me and then punish me for it. I couldn't reconcile myself with it. And so, like, there's just such a need for us to, like, affirm the people in our community and just tell them that we love them, and that they are well, and that they are perfect, and that they are whole, and that they don't need to change. Like, people just need affirmation. And I hope, if nothing else, that people will read, our book, and will leave wanting to do that, wanting to affirm and love others.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Ashley, for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Like I said, I want to just keep you. We're going to have to do something else. Just a bigger forum. Everybody stay on. Yeah. And because I think these conversations have to continue. We have to, like, kind of break through this wall that has been built up, especially in communities of color, especially because there's such, I want to say, a reprogramming that needs to happen, because we've been taught so many different things that and I have to say this, it's becoming a life or death issue now. I mean, this is, the suicide rates are starting to become the highest among young people. I think it's the second leading cause of death of people between, like, 10, always young as 10, or like 34. That's crazy.
10 to 34, yeah.
Then you start to break it down to African Americans and Latinos. Those numbers are going up. And then, of course, if we start looking at the LGBTQ community, it's even higher.
Yes, so it is.
These forums going off. This is why I'm doing this, and I do this forum because we need to understand this is right in our backyard. This is right here.
And I appreciate this so much. Thank you. I salute you for creating this space and having this conversation. I salute you, because it's so needed. And for everybody that's watching this, if you know someone who's LGBTQ, love them, affirm them, support them. The rates of attempted suicide in the LGBT community, a person that is lesbian, gay, or bisexual is 2 to 4 times more likely to attempt suicide than their heterosexual counterparts. So if you know someone that's lesbian, gay, or bisexual, love them, encourage them, support them, affirm them. And if you know somebody that's transgender, a transgender person is actually 10 times more likely to attempt suicide. Love them, affirm them, tell them that their life is worth living. They need to hear that.
Thank you so much again, Dr. Ashley. You are awesome. You are a Black therapist that rocks.
Thank you. You too. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Thank you. Have a blessed evening.
You too.
Okay. All right. So I think we have one more. Let's see if I can get her on. Let me see. I don't want to hit this X. Ashley, see if you can hit your X to close out.
Okay, let me hit my X.
Close
Bye,
out
everyone.
All right. Thank you for joining. Let's see if I could bring. All right. Okay. Hang in there, everyone. Thank you. Let me just see who has come into the room. Dr. Hardy, I see. Mo, Deja. Thank you, everyone, for joining. I have one more therapist, and I'll see if I can bring her on. Yeah. Linda Luter. While she's coming on, Linda is a licensed professional counselor specializing, and I'm going to mess this up, in imago therapy. She's going to tell you what that is. Solution focused therapy and cognitive behavioral therapy, among others. Linda's goal in working with individuals is to focus on their relationship with others, uncover unconscious thoughts and drivers, help them regulate their emotions, bring healing in areas of childhood, wounding, and help them understand how emotions and memories shape them today. So I'm hoping we can get Linda on. She, again, she's another different type of therapist, licensed professional counselor. And she is our last therapist. It's just saying it's adding. So hopefully we can get her on. I know this is a lot of information, but I hope, you're taking it in. Please share this video. Please share this video. This information, it may save, it may actually save a life. So please share this video. Hold on, let me try it. I hope she's there. I see Linda. Hey, Renetta, Ileana. I'm just hopefully I said your name correctly. Just want to make sure I'm acknowledging everyone that has joined us. Judy, thank you for joining. Thank you, Nina. Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay. So as you can see, just from the two therapists that were on, we do there's a lot of similarities with what we do, but there's so many specializations. There's so many different settings that we work in, the different types of work. There you are. Welcome.
Okay.
I was trying to buy some time, just, talking to the folks that are on. Okay. Ooh, this has been powerful already. You're going to bring us on home. Wrap all of this up, Linda. So I read a little bit about your bio, so I'm just going to turn it over to you. Tell a little bit about what you do as a licensed professional counselor. And what I've really been asking the therapist is just to kind of show a little bit of a distinction of what you may do from, say, an LCSW or an LMFT or even a psychologist, and talk a bit about your specialization and the population that you work with.
Okay.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. I was on my computer. Evidently, you can't go live from your computer.
No, you can't.
I
apologize. I that you can't there. You have to do the phone. So I'm glad you were able to connect.
Got it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm kind of new to all of this. So
that's all right. You're here.
Okay. Right. Okay, so that's very interesting when you said the differences. So I'm a licensed professional counselor in Virginia, and I guess the LPC process is one by education. You have to have a master's through an examination, and then 4 years of post master's, I guess, residency. And in that position, the LCSW, the LPC, I guess especially the LCSW, LPC, very similar. It's very hard to determine the differences because as you all had mentioned, I have also worked in-home. I did my clinical practice in an in-home agency. I've worked as a clinical director of Institute Family Services. I've also worked in the hospital as a hospital social worker. So as an LPC, I have been able to do a variety of things. As Ashley had mentioned, I have also worked with sex offenders. I worked with sex offenders for about 4 years. Let me make the distinction because it wasn't to the extent they were not registered sex offenders. The sex offenders that I work with were male. They were young men, all under the age of 18.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So they had the behavior, in other words. They had the deep behavior. Okay.
Yes, they did have the behavior, and they had also oftentimes been victims themselves.
Yep. Usually the case, right?
Exactly.
Which is what Ashley was speaking to, that, where you have to look at their humanity, because a lot of times, once they you start to peel back the layers and you hear their story, not that it makes an excuse for what they did, in any way, but you get to understand, that empathy, so that you can be able to, provide the treatment and meeting them where they are.
Most definitely. Most definitely. Yes. So I've had a lot of experiences with families, with individuals. Currently, I'm in private practice full time. I went full time last year into private practice, and now I specialize, I guess I would say mainly not so much just marriage, but interpersonal relationships. So that encompasses marriages, um, co-worker relationships, family relationships, just relationships in general.
So, I was reading your bio before you got on, and we had talked about what is it, imago therapy? Am I saying it correctly?
Yes, imago,
Can you
yes.
a little bit about that? Because again, that was new to me, and I was like, oh, what is that? Share a little bit about
imago. Yes, imago is a discipline where, and it actually coincides with the title of my chapter, which is Unfinished Business. And the philosophy of imago is that most of your interpersonal relationships is often due to this unfinished business. So what happens is when I approach couples counseling from the standpoint of helping the individuals go back into their childhood and help them to kind of acknowledge some of the subconscious activities that go on in us when it comes to relationships. And through some of the exercises that I take them through, they actually can start, because initially, if they come in for couples counseling and then I start talking about childhood, the first thing they're saying is, I didn't come here to talk about childhood. I came here to talk about this affair, this issue. We're fussing. We're not getting along. We need problems. We got problems in our relationships.
Right.
So that's basically, their understanding. So I just asked them if they will just have an open mind, and then that I would be willing to. We will definitely address those things, but if they would just keep an open mind, just give me a few sessions, humor me, and go through some of the exercises that the imago therapy encompasses, that I can prove to them that there is a direct link to the issues that are going on in their relationship and their childhood.
Look at that. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
power. And that's where a
Definitely.
lot people that follow me and watch my lives, I've spoken about extensively limited beliefs. Where do those
Yes.
limited beliefs come from? A lot of it comes from
Mm-hmm.
our childhood and how we were raised. Some of it comes from our parents or whoever raised us, and these things we carry it out into our adult relationships.
This is
So
true.
that's powerful. Okay, wonderful.
Yeah, definitely.
And your population is primarily, like you said, is couples, is families in general, or is it just couples primarily?
It's couples, it's families, it's individuals, it's the human being, basically. But usually it's those family dynamics, and the various issues that we go through when we're part of a family. Mm-hmm.
And let me ask this, because I didn't get a chance to ask Ann or Dr. Ashley, but one thing that all of us therapists at some point in our journey, especially if we've been doing this for a while, we
Mm-hmm.
can get to a place of burnout. We can get to a place of passion fatigue. Can you talk a little bit about that component of being a helping professional, being a clinician, being a therapist, and just how do you deal with that? How do you cope with burnout and compassion fatigue, and what has been your journey with that?
Mm-hmm. Well, the main thing that I do in that area is do as I say. Uh, in the midst of therapy, we preach a lot about relaxation techniques, breathing, journaling, that whole team. Having a team of people who are working in your corner,
Absolutely.
And so that's one of the key things that I do to help with burnout is to practice what I preach.
Yes.
And making sure that I am connected. That's how I found Black Therapist Rock. I was seeking a camaraderie of, other clinicians, someone, because private practice can be lonely at times.
Yes.
And I was discussing with a friend of mine, just that need to collaborate with others,
Yes.
especially with a lot of things that we go through. And she turned me on to Black Therapist Rock, and the rest is history.
Excellent. Yep. And I
Yeah.
think, and you said something that's so important, Linda, having the support, making those connections, because especially if you're in private practice, because it can be very isolated, lonely, and like you said, but I think, again, Dr. Ashley also spoke about it, the fact that from, even from providing service delivery, our delivery systems for our client, we need to have that multidisciplinary support as well, right? Because so that we provide those effective services and the appropriate services. So it's good for our clients as well as good for us, so that we don't get overwhelmed and burn out. If we are, we know how to refuel. We have somewhere we can go. So yes, so let's talk about, since we mentioned Black Therapist Rock, because every one of the clinicians that was on tonight, they are part of this larger organization, Black Therapist Rock, which is head by visionary Duran Young. And two of them, Linda and Dr. Ashley, are my co-authors in the Black Therapist Rock anthology, which is amazing. And I'm hoping that if you are watching, you will pre-order it, because when I say it's groundbreaking, it helps to give a look and an understanding of our journey, but also just, being providers in the Black community, being able to say, hey, there are therapists out here that are culturally competent, that are able to provide treatment and therapy and help and support, because, to people that are suffering, and many times are suffering in silence, and they have solutions. You've heard from 3 of them tonight. Okay. So Linda, tell us a little bit about your chapter, and just they know a little bit about what to expect when they pick up the book.
Yeah, so my chapter, like I said, is entitled Unfinished Business. And it is basically kind of the story about my transition from, this is my second career. Becoming a licensed professional counselor is my second career. My first career was an accountant. And I was an accountant in the DC area for about 15 years. But my parents started to age, and my mom started to show signs of dementia, Alzheimer's, but she was also a diabetic. And I saw, due to the aging and the health issues, that it was necessary for me to move back home to help to care for my parents. So in the midst of that, moving back home, that's what my chapter is about, all the things that kind of happened, making that transition, all of those family dynamics. I thought I was just coming back to help them, but I was coming back to be helped.
Look at that. Powerful. And and I'm sure many people, those of you that may catch this on the replay, put #replay, but how many of us can relate to that, where we have to make a change? Because all of us have so much in common, because I can even relate to that. It's like you make certain decisions and life changes, you have to, whether it's taking care of an ailing parent, or if it's a child that may have special needs, or if it's something just with you, maybe health issues that come up. So like I said, there's something that, if those that will be picking this book up, that will be reading it, I'm sure there's something that will resonate just from the stories, the journeys that each of us have taken. And we decided to turn it into, I think that Dr. Ashley spoke about, sometimes when you go through these experiences, either you say, oh, I want nothing to do with that, and you go a whole nother direction, or you say, I want to make a change. I want to make a difference, whether it's with a population or just in general, a certain segment cause. And, we all answered the call. I think that's what's so, compelling and beautiful about the work we do. We answered the call. It really, it said, it picked us.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
Sometimes like you say, you was an accountant, I was a marketing professional or marketing executive. So that's that we can, I can totally relate to that. So you never know, but once you're in it, because it's your calling. And once when it becomes just second nature and you're able to say, okay, I'll do this. Yes, it's tough work. Yes, some days I'm tired and, I'm stressed out maybe for a bit, but I can't see me doing anything else. Right?
Yes, definitely.
It's part of who you are. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, Linda, for sharing. I want to thank all of the therapists for just sharing, your heart and your mind and your soul this evening with this audience. And those of you that are on, please share this video. Again, we need to get the word out about therapy. Therapy is not a dirty word. It's not. We are here to help you. As you see, there's different types of clinicians, different types of therapists that are here to help. And we're all over the country, right? So,
definitely.
In Virginia, Dr. Ashley, I forgot where Dr. Ashley is, in Virginia as well, right? I know in the South. Where are you, Dr. Ashley? Just put it in the thing. Trying to remember where but I know Ann is in Atlanta. Right. Yes. So I think it's in the Midwest. So, and I'm in New York, and we have some that, a lot more that are in the DMV area. We are everywhere. So please put your information in the comment section in case there are people that are in Virginia that want to reach out to you. And I know it's a little after 9, so I'm not going to keep everybody too much longer. But I do want to say this. I'm also going to include in the comments the suicide prevention hotline. Okay, so I'm going to include that number. And again, get the book, Black Therapists Rock, A Glimpse Through the Eyes of the Experts. You've heard from some of my co-authors. Thank you, darling. I picked my book up. It fell on the floor.
That's it.
Up the book, and I'm telling you, listen. You are going to be blown away. You're only hearing from a few of the therapists. What's the numbers? It's 16 or 17 of us. Somebody put the right number in there. I keep saying, I think I counted 16, and then I also included the head of it all, Duran, because she's a clinical social worker as well. So we are all here to help. And like I said, I will put the information as well, how to pre-order the book, Black Therapist Rock.
I think it's 16. I think I just counted.
Right, 16 plus the rand. That's why I've been saying 17, because she's a clinician. So thank you, everyone. If you have questions for any of the therapists that were on this evening, or you want to reach out to them, their information will be in the comment section. And you can also post questions in the comments, or, just hit us up in inbox or whatever if the questions are personal. But we are here. We're here to support. We're here to answer questions. And I just thank you. Thank you all. Everyone have a blessed evening and be safe. And please share this video. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Phoenix.
All right. Take care.
All right. Okay.